right, pay attention, people. I'm going to learn you something here. I'm always amazed at how many drivers don't understand how to buy fuel. They see, hey, fuel at the fuel pump is $3.20 here and $3.10 over here. It's cheaper over the $3.10, right? Okay, it doesn't always work that way. Let me try to explain this. It gets a little bit confusing. It took me years to understand it, and it's still tough for me to figure. But when you buy fuel, you've got the cost of the fuel, and you've got all these taxes and stuff on it. You got your federal tax, and you got your state tax, and sometimes even local taxes, okay? When it comes to diesel fuel at the truck stops, I don't think they usually have too much local tax, but it's usually federal and state taxes. Well, federal tax is everywhere in the country, period. Even Alaska and Canada, I think. I don't know. But all 48 states, I know. It's there's federal tax on, okay? Each individual state has different tax rates, though. So Texas has 20 cents a gallon fuel tax, whereas like Illinois has 37 cents fuel tax. Pennsylvania, I think, is the highest at 75, I believe. Of course, you would want to buy your fuel in a low tax state, wouldn't you? Well, it depends. I'm going to make a spreadsheet here and put it up here on the screen for you, but I've written it down on a piece of paper here for my simplicity for me right now. On this load, I picked up this load in Kent, Washington, and I come across 90 most of the way over into Iowa and got down to 80, and then run 80 all the way over here to where I'm at, Pennsylvania, in Ohio. Now I'm going back up on 90 again to run up in through New York on up to Boston. Along that way, I needed to get fuel. Now, I left Kent, Washington, and I had a little over half a tank of fuel, I guess, or 3/4 of a tank, something like that. And I was running across there, and I got to think, okay, where's the cheapest place for me to buy fuel? What makes sense to buy fuel at for the lowest cost? And, you know, as much fuel as I buy, every little penny counts. It adds up over the end of the year, okay? So where I'm going to go with this here is with... we get discounts. The fuel card we use is a Canon data card, and it's kind of like a prepaid fuel card for trucks, and it's like a prepaid credit card, so to say. And the company I lease to, they put a certain amount of money onto the cards, you know, for the whole company, and they renew that every day. They have to have a certain dollar amount on the card or on the system. Let's just knock it down to one truck instead of multiple trucks. Let's knock it down to one truck. If I had my own fuel card, I'd have to put, let's say, $5,000 onto the fuel card. And as I used it down, when I got down to about $2,000, they'd want me to replenish that, and I'd put more money on that card again. The reason we use those cards is so we don't have to carry thousands and thousands of dollars of cash around, okay? So we use these fuel cards, and we get these huge discounts with them, okay? If you sign up with their service, you get these huge discounts. How do they give us these discounts? Well, they buy this fuel in bulk, and they call them blocks. And this is the part that I don't quite understand. I mean, I've got an inkling of it, but I don't know it enough to explain it to you guys. So the side that I do understand, though, is they give us a discount, okay? I don't know how they get those discounts, but they get these huge discounts. All right, for instance, now they don't want us giving these numbers out, especially on the internet, you know. On the email they send to me, it says for private use only. So I'm not going to give you exact numbers. I'm going to give you close numbers. Does that make sense? So these are not accurate numbers at the time, okay? Okay, we get huge, very large discounts at the TA and Petro truck stops, okay? Ranging from 20 cents a gallon to 50 or 70 cents a gallon sometimes. You know, sometimes they get really big. The most I've seen is around 80 cents, okay? But usually it's a 20 or 30 cent discount, somewhere along in there, okay? At the Pilot and the Flying J, we get a flat 8 cents. And at the Loves, we don't get much at all. We get maybe a penny or two at the Loves. And then there's all the other independent truck stops. There's a whole list of them that we can look up. But usually they're nickel and maybe 10 cents a gallon, 8 cents a gallon kind of stuff. But so obviously the best fuel prices for me is at the Petro and the TA. So I pull into them a lot, okay? The only time I buy other kind of fuel is when I don't have enough to get to that truck stop. I stop and grab 50 gallons at a Love's or a Pilot or something, and then that'll get me to the cheaper fuel and top off there. All right, and you've seen some of my fuel, the top offs are $700-800, okay? So it adds up a lot over the years. Kind of like frequent fueler miles. If you only fly, you know, a vacation once a year, frequent fueler or frequent flyer miles doesn't really add up. But if you're a businessman or a businesswoman or a business person and you're flying around all the time, every day, a couple times a week or whatever, they add up a lot. Okay. All right. So with that said, I had a choice when I left Washington. I had a choice. There's a TA right there outside of Portland, or not Portland, Seattle, and I didn't want to get fuel there. Okay. But I could get fuel up at Spokane, Washington, okay? And I had my choice. I had enough to get all the way into Montana, over to around Billings, Montana, okay? And so I had a choice. I can stop at Spokane and fuel up with half a tank, or I can wait till I get to Montana and fill up a whole tank, okay? So I looked these prices up. So I go onto the email that they send me. Every Monday through Friday, Safety sends me an email of all these different truck stop prices. Okay, I wrote some numbers down here just to give you good ideas. At Spokane, the pump price was $3.65 a gallon. Our discount would have been somewhere like $2.94, $2.95, somewhere along in there. I'll just write $2.94. That's a 71-cent discount. Woohoo! Big discount, okay? Or I can wait till Montana. I can go over there and the pump price is $3.17. The discounted price is $2.93. That's a penny cheaper, okay? And it's a 24-cent discount. Not as big a discount. Who cares? Okay, it's only 1 penny difference for me. Okay, $2.94, $2.93. Obviously, I'm going to go to Missoula and buy fuel, right? Well, hold on now. You got to figure out the actual price of the fuel. Okay, you got to take the tax off, because the taxes are refigured at the end of the quarter. Every quarter they figure the taxes up, and it doesn't matter where you buy the fuel. If you drove in that state, I could drive all the way across Idaho and never buy any fuel. I still got to pay the fuel tax in that state for the miles that I drove. We used to have to figure all this stuff out ourselves and mail individual checks to each state that we drove in and settle up at the end of the quarter, 4 times a year. Okay, I'm not sure what year it was. It was somewhere around 2000, late 90s, something like that. They came up with this thing called IFTA. The federal government decided, hey, we're going to get our foot in this, because it was such a headache to do all this stuff. So they got in, and it's one of the good things that the government actually did. It made our life a little bit easier. We have, instead of reporting to 48 states or the 10 states that you run in, whatever, instead of having to report to all these states and pay individual things, we just report one to IFTA, and they sort it out, and then they tell you, hey, you owe this state owes this much and whatever. All right, so let's just say we've got a 1,000-mile run, and I run from point A to point B, 1,000 miles, and I'm going to run 500 miles in this one state. Okay, I'm running across Texas, let's say. Okay, I'm going to run 500 miles. If I don't buy any fuel in Texas, Texas is going to say, hey, we didn't make any money off of you for you used our highway, okay? You wore our highway out a little bit, and we didn't make any fuel tax money on you. So we're just going to bill you. You drove 500 miles, we're going to bill you for those miles. Well, that's all and good. Okay, so what you can do, instead of letting them bill you the money, you can actually buy fuel and then hold the receipt up and say, see, I actually bought fuel in your state. And they go, oh, okay, well, how much did you buy? Well, I bought enough to drive 500 miles. And they go, okay, all's clear. That's the way it used to be done. Nowadays, you report to IFTA. IFTA figures it all out and figures, and they do the calculation. Yeah, actually, we have to do a lot of calculations still, but they figure it out. They write the individual checks from state to state to state, transfer money, whatever. And at the end of the quarter, they say, hey, you're about $300 short. I have to pay IFTA $300, okay? If I go and I've overpaid a little too much, they will send me, well, they usually don't send you a check. What they'll do is they'll credit you toward the next quarter. So let's say I overpaid $50 throughout the quarter. You add and subtract all these different things, and I overpaid in this state, I underpaid in this state, overpaid in this state, underpaid in that state, and it all figures out to where at the end it's a $50 overpay. They just credit that to the next quarter. So now the next quarter, if I'm $300 short, I only have to pay $250. You get the idea? All right. So that's IFTA in a real basic nutshell. It's much more complicated than that, but anyway, you have to consider that when you're buying your fuel. So remember, Spokane fuel was $2.94 to me, and Missoula was $2.93 to me. It's a penny cheaper in Missoula, right? But in Montana, I get 29-cent credit toward my fuel tax that I send into IFTA, okay? Spokane, I get 49-cent fuel tax credit. Gee, that's 20 cents difference. It costs me out of the pocket about the same money, but I actually get a bigger tax credit during that quarter. You know, all that giving and taking all the way through the month, you know, the 3 months. It's actually cheaper to buy in Spokane. Even though it's a penny more at the pump, I get a bigger credit on my IFTA. Okay, so I stopped in Spokane, bought fuel. I also stopped in Missoula and bought some fuel too, because I wanted to run from there all the way over at least to Illinois or Ohio. Okay, I had enough fuel I could get all the way across over there. So I didn't have to worry about fuel. After I left Missoula, I was topped off, and I drove all the way. Of course, I didn't have to top a whole, I mean, I wasn't completely empty. I only had to put, I think, 70 gallons in or something like that. So anyway, I fill up there, and now I can get all the way over into Illinois. All right, now I could stop in all these other states like Iowa or South Dakota. I could have bought fuel up in there, but the prices weren't looking too good to me. So what I did is this is every trip, I figure out where I should buy fuel at. Okay, so I figured in Morris, Illinois, up on I-80, north central Illinois, kind of just not too far out of Chicago there. The pump price was $3.03. My discounted price was $2.60. That's a 43-cent discount. Okay. In Ohio, up by past Cleveland, Ohio, there's Kingsville, Ohio. There's a TA there, and the pump price was $3.13. Okay. The discount price was $2.58. The difference is 55 cents. I got a bigger discount in Ohio, didn't I? But what's the actual fuel prices? $2.60 and $2.58, right? So $2.50 and $2.58. Ohio's cheaper at the pump for me. Okay, let's figure the fuel tax out of that though. So out of the Illinois, we'll take $2.60 minus the 37 cents fuel tax equals $2.23 a gallon, versus Ohio is $2.58 minus 47 is $2.11 a gallon. Wow. Ohio's a lot cheaper, isn't it? It's actually $2.11 is what I'm actually paying, okay? So what I ended up doing, I topped off where I filled a lot of fuel up in Spokane. I bought a little bit of fuel in Missoula. Then I went over to Illinois and bought a little bit of fuel. And then I got over here to Ohio and topped off, okay? Because the Ohio fuel is the cheaper fuel, all things considered. So that might give you a little bit of an insight how drivers don't understand. Company drivers, they don't care. The company, actually, it has gotten so bad that the bigger corporation companies, the really big mega carriers, they give you a fuel card, their fuel card, and you're just a driver. It's their truck, it's their trailer, it's their fuel, okay? It's their card, it's their money. They're going to tell you where they want you to buy fuel. And they got these sophisticated computer programs that figure all this stuff that I just told you. There's a computer program that figures that out for 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 trucks, however big the fleet is. So the computer will actually, when they get dispatched, they'll ask on the little computer screen, it'll ask how much fuel you have. I got 3/4 of a tank of fuel. Well, they know 3/4 of a tank of fuel in their trucks is this many gallons. The program figures out it can go this many miles. They're going to have you stop and get exactly 50 gallons in this state at this truck stop, this specific truck stop. Okay. Then you're going to drive 500 miles over here, and you're going to top off at this next truck stop. Okay. And then you're going to drive, and even though you still got a half a tank of fuel, they're going to tell you you have to stop and buy fuel at this truck stop also. So you end up spending, you know, like me, I actually bought fuel at all 4 of these truck stops, okay? But I decided how much to buy at each of these truck stops, just like that computer program. But I did it instead of a program, and some of these I've seen. It actually happened to me years ago. I was working for a company, and they had this program. I won't name the name of the company, but anyway, they had this program, and they'd have you pull into this truck stop. You're right at the state line, and they have you stop and buy 22 gallons. It's not worth the time, okay? But they want you to stop because it covers their IFTA fuel tax or something, okay? Then you drive 50 miles over into the next state and you top off. And you had enough fuel, you could easily drove 50 extra miles and got to that other truck stop. But if you skip over the little 22 gallons, shame. They give you a demerit, and if you get too many demerits, they fire you. So it's all about penny pinching, saving that dollar, saving them pennies, okay? It adds up over the, you know, and I understand why a corporation does that. But you have 2,000 trucks. That penny pinching makes $1 million difference at the end of the year. Yeah, and it makes, I think the most fuel I've ever bought was several years ago when I was running my company, and I was running almost every week, run. I spent about $80,000 in fuel, one truck. If I had saved a penny per gallon of all the gallons I bought, there's a couple $1,000s in savings. Buys a set of tires. So anyway, with all that said, thanks for watching, and hope you like this. Hope it was informative. I hope you learned something. I hope I taught you something. So, ciao. Take care. Bye-bye.